solution to the Jewish question. 19. On the 31st of July 1941, Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring wrote to Reinhard Heydrich, Himmler's deputy and chief of the RSHA, 2021, authorizing him to make the necessary preparations for a total solution of the Jewish question and coordinate with all affected organizations. Göring also instructed Heydrich to submit concrete proposals for the implementation of the new projected goal. 22. 23. Broadly speaking, the extermination of Jews was carried out in two major operations. With the onset of Operation Barbarossa, mobile killing units of the SS, the Einsatzgruppen, and order police battalions were dispatched to the occupied Soviet Union for the express purpose of murdering all Jews. During the early stages of the invasion, Himmler himself visited Bialystok at the beginning of July 1941, and requested that as a matter of principle, any Jew behind the German-Soviet frontier was to be regarded as a partisan. His new orders gave the SS and police leaders full authority for the mass murder behind the front lines. By August 1941, all Jewish men, women, and children were shot. 24. In the second phase of annihilation, the Jewish inhabitants of Central, Western, and Southeastern Europe were transported by Holocaust trains to camps with newly built gassing facilities. Raoul Hilberg wrote, in essence, the killers of the occupied USSR were moved to the victims, whereas outside this arena, the victims were brought to the killers. The two operations constitute an evolution not only chronologically, but also in complexity. 9. Massacres of about 1 million Jews occurred before plans for the final solution were fully implemented in 1942, but it was only with the decision to annihilate the entire Jewish population that extermination camps such as Auschwitz II-Birkenau and Treblinka were fitted with permanent gas chambers to murder large numbers of Jews in a relatively short period of time. 25. 26. The villa at 5658 Am Grossen 1C, where the 1C conference was held, is now a memorial and museum. The plans to exterminate all the Jews of Europe were ephemeralized at the 1C conference, held at an SS guest house near Berlin, 27, on the 20th of January, 1942. The conference was chaired by Heydrich and attended by 15 senior officials of the Nazi Party and the German government. Most of those attending were representatives of Interior Ministry, the Foreign Ministry, and the Justice Ministry, including ministers for the Eastern Territories. 28. At the conference, Heydrich indicated that approximately 11,000,000 Jews in Europe would fall under the provisions of the final solution. This figure included not only Jews succeeding in Axis-controlled Europe, but also the Jewish populations of the United Kingdom and of neutral nations, Switzerland, Ireland, Sweden, Spain, Portugal and European Turkey. 2. Eichmann's biographer David Cesaroni wrote that Heydrich's main purpose in convening the conference was to assert his authority over the various agencies dealing with Jewish issues. The simplest, most decisive way that Heydrich could ensure the smooth flow of deportations to death camps, according to Cesaroni, was by asserting his total control over the fate of the Jews in the Reich and East under the single authority of the RSHA. 29. A copy of the minutes of this meeting was found with allies in March 1947. Winking sad smiley 30. It was too late to serve as evidence during the first Nuremberg trial, but was used by Prosecutor General Telford Taylor in the subsequent Nuremberg trials. 31. After the end of World War II, surviving archival documents provided a clear record of the final solution policies and actions of Nazi Germany. They included the 1C Conference Protocol, which documented the cooperation of various German state agencies in the SS-led Holocaust, as well as some 3,000 tons of original German records captured by Allied armies. 26. 32, including the Einsatzgruppen reports, which documented the progress of the mobile killing units assigned, among other tasks, to murder Jewish civilians during the attack on the Soviet Union in 1941. The evidential proof which documented the mechanism of the Holocaust was submitted at Nuremberg. 32. Phase 1. Death Squads of Operation Barbarossa. The Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union, codenamed Operation Barbarossa, which commenced on 22 June 1941, set in motion a war of annihilation which quickly opened the door to the systematic mass murder of European Jews. 33. For Hitler, Bolshevism was merely the most recent and most nefarious manifestation of eternal Jewish threat. 34. On the 3rd of March 1941, Wehrmacht Joint Operations Staff Chief Alfred Jodl repeated Hitler's declaration that the Jewish Bolshevik intelligentsia would have to be eliminated, and that forthcoming war would be a confrontation between two completely opposing cultures. 35. In May 1941, Gestapo leader Heinrich Müller wrote a preamble to the new law limiting the jurisdiction of military courts in prosecuting troops for criminal actions because, this time, the troops will encounter an especially dangerous element from the civilian population, and therefore, have the right and obligation to secure themselves. 36. Himmler note the 18th of December 1941, als Partisanen Ausserrottung. Himmler and Heydrich assembled a force of about 3,000 men from security police, Gestapo, Kripo, SD, and the Waffen-SS, as the so-called special commandos of the security forces known as the Einsatzgruppen, to eliminate both communists and Jews in occupied territories. 37. These forces were supported by 21 battalions of Orpo Reserve Police under Kurt Daluege, adding up to 11,000 men. 38. The explicit orders given to the Order Police of Ohrid. Between locations, but for Police Battalion 309 participating in the first mass murder of 5,500 Polish Jews in the Soviet-controlled Bialystok, a Polish provincial capital, Major Weiss explained to his officers that Barbarossa is a war of annihilation against Bolshevism. 39, and that his battalions would proceed ruthlessly against all Jews, regardless of age or sex. 40. After crossing the Soviet demarcation line in 1941, what had been regarded as exceptional in the Greater Germanic Reich became a normal way of operating in the East. The crucial taboo against the murder of women and children was breached not only in Bialystok but also in Gardai in late June. 41. By July, significant numbers of women and children were being murdered behind all front lines, not only by the Germans but also by the local Ukrainian and Lithuanian auxiliary forces. 42. On the 29th of July 1941, at a meeting of SS officers in Wielka, Polish Wieleczka, now Belarus, the Einsatzgruppen had been given a dressing down for their low execution figures. Heydrich himself issued an order to include the Jewish women and children in all subsequent shooting operations. 43. Accordingly, by the end of July, the entire Jewish population of Wielka, men, women and children, were murdered. 43. Around the 12th of August, no less than two-thirds of the Jews shot in Suras were women and children of all ages. 43. In late August 1941, the Einsatzgruppen murdered 23,600 Jews in the Kamianets-Podilsky massacre. 44. A month later, the large mass shooting of Soviet Jews took place on 29–30th of September in the ravine of Babi Yar, near Kyiv, where more than 33,000 Jewish people of all ages were systematically machine-gunned. 45. In mid-October 1941, HSSPF South, under the command of Friedrich Jekyll, had reported the indiscriminate murder of more than 100,000 people. 46. By the end of December 1941, before the Wannsee Conference, Over 439,800 Jewish people had been murdered, and the final solution policy in the East became common knowledge within the SS. 47. Entire regions were reported free of Jews by the Einsatzgruppen. Addressing his district governors in the general government on the 16th of December, 1941, Governor General Hans Frank said, "But what will happen to Jews? Do you believe they will be lodged in settlements in Ostland? In Berlin, we were told, why this trouble, we cannot use them in the Ostland or the Reichskommissariat either, liquidate them ourselves." 48. 2 days later, Himmler recorded the outcome of his discussion with Hitler. The result was, als Partisanen auszurotten, exterminate them as partisans. 49. Israeli historian Yehuda Bauer wrote that the remark is probably as close as historians will ever get to a definitive order from Hitler for the genocide carried out during the Holocaust. 49. Within 2 years, the total number of shooting victims in the East had risen to between 618,000 and 800,000 Jews. 47. 50. Bezirksballistök and Reichskommissariat Ostland. Several scholars have suggested that the final solution began in the newly formed district of Bezirksballistök. 51. The German army took over Bialystok within days. On Friday, the 27th of June, 1941, the Reserve Police Battalion 309 arrived in the city and set the Great Synagogue on fire with hundreds of Jewish men locked inside. 52. The burning of the synagogue was followed by a frenzy of murders both inside the homes around the Jewish neighborhood of Shenatki, and in the city park, lasting until night time. 53. The next day, some 30 wagons of dead bodies were taken to mass graves. As noted by Browning, the murders. Original annotated map from Stalecker's report, summarizing murders committed by Einsatzgruppen in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Belarus and Russia until January 1942 were led by a commander who correctly intuited and anticipated wishes of his Führer without direct orders. 52. For reasons unknown, the number of victims in the official report by Major Weiss was cut in half. 53. The next mass shooting of Polish Jews within the newly formed Reichskommissariat Ostland took place in 2 days of 5–7 August. In occupied Pinsk, where over 12,000 Jews were murdered by the Waffen-SS. 54. Not the Einsatzgruppen. 44. An additional 17,000 Jews perished there in our ghetto uprising crushed a year later with the aid of Belarusian auxiliary police. 55. An Israeli historian Dina Pratt claimed that the final solution, the systematic overall physical extermination of Jewish communities one after the other began in Lithuania during the massive German chase after the Red Army across the Reichskommissariat Ostland. 56. The subject of the Holocaust in Lithuania has been analyzed by Konrad Quite from Ushaw wrote, Lithuanian Jews were among the first victims of the Holocaust, beyond the eastern borders of occupied Poland. The Germans carried out the mass executions, signaling the beginning of the final solution. 57. About 80,000 Jews were murdered in Lithuania by October, including informally Polish women, and about 175,000 by the end of 1941 according to official reports. 56. Reichskommissariat Ukraine. Within 1 week from the start of Operation Barbarossa, Heydrich issued an order to his Einsatzgruppen for the on-the-spot execution of all Bolsheviks, interpreted by the SS to mean all Jews. One of the first indiscriminate massacres of men, women, and children in Reichskommissariat Ukraine took the lives of over 4,000 Polish Jews in occupied Luk on 4th of July 1941, murdered by Einsatzkommando 4am assisted with Ukrainian People's Militia. 58. Formed officially on the 20th of August 1941. The Reichskommissariat Ukraine, stretching from pre-war East Central Poland to Crimea, had become operational theater of the Einsatzgruppe within the Soviet Union proper. Between the 9th of July 1941 and the 19th of September 1941, the city of Zhytomyr was made Judo-free in 3 murder operations conducted by German and Ukrainian police, in which 10,000 Jews perished. 44. In the Kamianets-Podilsky massacre of 26–28 August 1941.